right, we're live, we're recording, and thank you very much for attending today. I'm not so sure if a lot more people are going to turn up. There might be about 2 or 3 people more that might turn up, but yeah, Esain, I was just saying earlier, I'm going to give a little discourse about how, some tips about how you can prepare for the masterclass. So before I get into that, if you guys have any questions about your musical career or what you want to do from this, please feel free to ask anything. Or your interest in producing or anything.
Yeah, I was
Then I can
uh,
go. Okay, Justin, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
sure. So, I guess, would you recommend getting a MIDI controller, or you think, as a complete beginner, I could just kind of do without it?
Yeah, I guess like I wanted to ask you the same question about this as well. Yeah.
Great question. It is not a mandatory thing that you require. I remember when I first started producing about 12 years ago, I didn't have a MIDI controller, so I started off with the keyboard. Most professional DAWs have a keyboard option where you can like play sounds and notes off of the keyboard. And that's a good place to start, but if you start to do it more and more, sorry, there's one more person coming in for the call.
Yeah, I think that's my friend.
Hello, hi, Raylene. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
I think she joined and left then.
Okay. Anyway, so you can start off just with your keyboard, but you will come to a point where you feel limited by expressing yourself with the keyboard. So when you come to that point where you feel a limitation with expressing yourself, that's when is a good time to get a MIDI controller. Another thing I would actually recommend is trying friends' MIDI controllers before you buy a MIDI controller. So I got my first MIDI controller. It was actually a pretty cool, like, long little keyboard that somebody just gave it to me that they weren't using. So I got lucky that way. And that, like, really changes the experience of the writing process. So, yes, I recommend getting a MIDI controller, but I don't recommend, like, if you're not ready for one yet, don't get it yet. So just start off with the simplest basic thing that you have first. And then if you feel... and then I would recommend actually trying to try other people's MIDI controllers before you buy a MIDI controller, because you'll be able to assess better what level of MIDI controller do you need.
And like as to what kind, like I mean, I'm assuming like different people might have different preferences as to what they might want to use as well. So would it be better to just try, just go around and try first, lah?
Yes, everyone's preference is different. It's not just a preference situation; it's also a budget situation, because I think like I don't recommend getting the best MIDI controller possible, like with the most amount of money you can at the beginning. I think getting a good MIDI controller, like you kind of like ascend to the need of a good MIDI controller. You start with something really simple, and then you kind of just get more complex as your workflow gets more complex. So you start to know, like, you know, there's different types of MIDI controllers. There's like keyboard MIDI controllers. There's like just like knobs that you can twist and tweak. And then like the MIDI controller I use is basically an Ableton push. And this is a dream MIDI controller for me, because I think I spent a lot of time using keyboards with Logic on Logic, but that wasn't really my instrument. The keyboard isn't really my instrument, so it's not my most comfortable thing to play. And the push allows me to do something simple, allows me to play, and it has a lot of like cool like control features. So it's able to take me off the screen and be more into the controller. But that's come gradually over time. I've like had to ascend to that need. I didn't need it in the beginning. It like came over the time after doing a lot of productions. I was like, oh wow, this thing is the thing that I want to try. I tried it. It was amazing, and then I just bought it. Actually, I bought it also because I went for a retreat, and my teacher at the retreat was using a push to, and he was before the retreat, he was actually showing us some of the stuff that he was doing on it. And then I tried it, I liked it, and then I bought it. So, yeah, this is my advice about that. Do you have a MIDI controller?
No.
I have one. I have one Novation series, but frankly speaking, I haven't used it much. Yeah. So yeah.
So that's another good observation. Like, if you are having MIDI controllers and you're not using it much, that's a sign that you shouldn't change MIDI controller yet. You should first of all figure out how to use your current MIDI controller, the tools that you already have, and then if you're not comfortable with it, then you start to look for something that is helping you realize whatever your needs are better.
So would like a electronic drum kit or like motion sensing drumsticks count? Like, I mean, they
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's something that I think those kind of things, they probably make the process of writing drum grooves and things like that and recording it on MIDI much easier. So completely valid. Like, yeah.
But like when it comes to like accuracy of like making the beats, would you say like getting a pad or using a keyboard would be a lot more accurate? Like
As opposed to?
like an electronic drum kit, or you could just shift it in production.
Good question. I think it really depends on what your where. So it depends on your comfort between the translation of whatever your controller is and what it gives on the computer. So, for example, I bought a plugin called MIDI Guitar, and MIDI Guitar is a plugin where I can plug in my guitar, and then it goes into like this plugin, and then whenever I play notes and stuff like that, it would come out on the screen, which is like much more comfortable for me than as opposed to playing keyboard. But the accuracy of that thing, it had a lot of accidental notes, and a lot of the accidental notes, quite a lot of them were quite nice, but quite a lot of them were not necessary. So there was only really one way for me to find out if it was useful or not, and I had to buy the plugin to find out. I don't really use the plugin anymore. I really like some of the results that I got out with it, but to be honest, I barely touch that plugin anymore. And I don't touch that plugin because I found all the expressivity I need in my current MIDI controller, the push. So it's really a question of kind of like trying the thing and then seeing how musically expressive you feel with it. The more like musically expressive and connected and excited you feel, the easier it is to work with that tool.
And like going back to like the accidental sounds being created, like in a sense, maybe it's good for like good discoveries that you wouldn't necessarily discover if you were using something else.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I wrote a whole album off of using that MIDI guitar plugin. It was a lot of fun to do it, but I just found it a little taxing to do the editing part because it would give so many mistakes, and then the thing would be like wrong, and then choosing what's the right wrong was like tiring in the mind, you know, like because music production is just like decision making, constantly decision making. So yeah. There's lots of gold from the accidental stuff, for sure.
Hey, since you're talking about decision making, is it important to know music theory? Will you be going through some of it if it is, or should we just learn it on our own?
I will cover some of music theory in probably the second class, which is songwriting. I'm not gonna go into a deep depth about music theory. I can, but I don't think it's really the focus of music production. I definitely think you don't need to enter music production with music theory, but having it definitely puts you at an advantage. And so I'm just going to illuminate that basic foundation knowledge that you need to have. And just with the simple knowledge of like some basic music theory, it's just like going to help you open up anything you need to think about musically when making decisions. So, for example, if you're writing a song in a specific key, you need to know what are the notes that work with that key. And then you'll have tools or plugins in your program that can help you just like allow you to only play notes within that key. And I'll explain what is key and what are the notes and all of that. But I'm not going to do like an hour-long lesson. It might be like 10, 15 minutes of music theory. And that's specifically about the concept of key and notes and how they're related to each other.
For you personally, did you enter it knowing a lot of it already, or was it like you just kind of picked it up as you got more into music production?
I actually learned music theory through playing guitar, so I had to learn it through that. I never actually, I don't, I got to experience more different types of scales through music production that I normally wouldn't experience with guitar. But yeah, I teach guitar as well, so kind of knowing music theory and being able to explain chords and stuff like that to people is really important with guitar. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
I guess like on decision making as well. Like usually when start with like how do you usually start making like music? Like what's the process like?
So I think every process is different. I currently and I'm gonna go through this in more depth during the masterclass because it's a great question. It's like when you have a good starting point, it becomes really easy to make the music thereafter. If you don't have a good starting point, it becomes a real like long experiment that maybe never gets finished. So as time has gone by, I've become more and more simple with the concept, my starting concept. So, for example, this year, my general theme has been to do like music with more like shamanic rhythms, for example. So I will actually go out and look for drums or percussion sounds that give me that underlying theme of a shamanic rhythm. So just having that basic idea of concept, I want to work on just using one instrument. And I just want to learn how to make a song with one instrument. Having a very focused vision of your concept will help you to do so much. So, yeah, and that's that. It doesn't need to be complicated. Themes can just be about a rhythm. I'm gonna write a song with triplets, just with the triplet rhythm. 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, and that can be your entire concept for the whole song. And you can get into more complicated things, like I want to make a song about love, and then you've got to go and find all the themes that help you to give that feeling of love. Yeah, so my personal advice is keep the concept when you want to think about songwriting, start off with a concept. Make a concept, make some limitations in your concept. And actually, the more limitations you have, because, when you jump into a DAW, you've kind of got like this endless, infinite amount of space to work and create and have fun with. And when you have that, you have nothing. What you kind of need to do is like focus it to like just like a few things, and having that focus helps you to achieve a lot more.
So yeah, okay. For me, consider me as a beginner as well. So, how does it give me value from the starting to end? Especially, I'm looking for connecting to the devices, external devices, doing the live loop, those kind of things. So, and completely about the Ableton software itself.
Uh, okay, wait. I I'm gonna need you to rephrase your question for a second. So you said, how does it give me value? How does what give you
Mm,
value? Taking the masterclass, how does it give you value?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, how does it give you value in regards to being able to? Uh, what's your what's your medium or thing that you use? Tell me a little bit
Uh,
more about your.
okay. Though I'm using Ableton, I'm using Innovation MIDI controller, but I've tried to explore many things, but it doesn't work as even if I look at YouTube videos, sometimes it gets out of the hand and then I'll stop it in 2 hours or 3 hours. So yeah. So will it be helpful if I join your class to completely stick with the small portion, small area of the software, or the how to use the devices, how to connect the guitar, how to connect to the external devices, etc.
Sure. I mean, if you ask me, okay, I understand your question. Now, yes, definitely the masterclass is going to help you to know what steps to take forward. And I mean, I think this is the big problem with music production. It's not so much that there's not enough information. There's actually too much information. It's the opposite problem. And so when you have all the information at your fingertips, it's really hard to know what's the right step forward to help you kind of like get to the next step, basically. And so, I mean, I've spent quite a lot of time making a lot of different types of music. And over the years, I've come up with kind of like a process. And within the process of each section, I have things that I will suggest that you should cover, and in kind of like what kind of steps. Like I think the hardest parts of music production that most people don't understand or don't give credit to is editing and mixing. Those are like the two most time consuming parts of music production. The songwriting part is the easy part. Writing the music is the easy part. Finding sounds is actually quite a time consuming part of the process. But once you find the sounds you like to work with, and then it becomes really fun to play with them. But then editing and then mixing and knowing what to do in what order is not that straightforward. So having like part of the masterclass's aim is actually to give you a framework. So next time when you need to mix a song, you have this template that you go through, and you go like step by step by step by step, and you kind of like end up finishing like at least something that's kind of at least like professional in its approach, basically. And what was I going to say? Oh, when I started off mixing, I never had a framework. So what happens when you don't have a system is that you keep moving in circles. So you'll make one decision. I'll change the sound here. I'll make this decision here. And then you'll do something else. And then you'll come back and you'll be like, oh no, now that I've changed the other stuff, this thing has already changed in relation to the other thing. And then you go in circles just like tweaking left, right, and tweaking the wrong things, basically. So part of like this masterclass is it's going to give you like this like format and template. So when you start to tweak, you go like with a systematic step-by-step kind of instruction of, okay, now I'm just going to start first with the kick drum. I'm just going to work on the kick drum, make sure the sound hits a certain level. I'm going to tune it. And, like once you're done with the kick drum, then you move to the next sound. I'm going to go to the bass. And then I'm going to make sure that the bass has this level that it's matching with the kick, So you kind of have this skeleton that you can work with. And you can modify the skeleton to whatever your process is over time. But I'll give you that basic framework to help you to move forward, so you don't spend hours and hours going through YouTube videos and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like so you know, like for example, that day you were playing with Cruz, you were like playing it live as opposed to just playing like something you already produced before.
Pre-mixed. Yeah.
Remixed. So like yeah, what I guess what I'm trying to ask, like I could phrase it better, but like how difficult is that compared to like, you know, a premix?
Great question. It's actually, it's just a very different consciousness requirement. So when I have things where I premix, I do premix, like when I'm writing specific pieces for shows, I have to premix everything and make sure it's like got a start point, it's an end point, it's time bound. And that in itself takes up a ton of time. Just getting the premix to be exactly how you want it to be and be able to nail it into a thing that is like perfect and what you want it to be, that's a very, very it's a very meticulous skill. It's a very time consuming, meticulous skill. Whereas with the process that I have with Cruz, that's like a little bit more flowy. It's less time consuming, but it is one where I have to be super present and I have to be like paying attention to everything that's happening in the moment. Whereas with a premix, I can be more relaxed. It's like it's already done. There's not much I can change when it's pre-mixed. But when I'm doing it live, I have to be really super conscious about how everything is moving, how I'm moving with my partner. It's a very different game. It's a very different conscious game.
But like as to like how like the levels you're mixing and everything, I'm assuming like in the practice sessions everything you kind of in a way pre-mixed it in your head, like what you're gonna turn it to, all that kind of stuff.
No, that's part of my preparation process. So my mixing work happens before I come to the show. So I will mix all my sounds and make sure that they sound good next to each other before I come to the show. And so when I come to the show and I start to mix them live, I have some idea of how they will interact with each other, how they'll fit in the mix with each other.
But it's still like spontaneous to some extent.
It is spontaneous to some extent, definitely.
I guess I wanted to ask about like you know, at the end of the masterclass, like there's a voluntary show, right? Yeah, so like would it be more like, you know, pre-mix stuff or like, you know, like doing what you did
It's up to you. I mean, it depends on what comes out of your process at the end of the whole thing, right? Like if at the end of the process you want to share something that's pre-mixed that you've been working on for a period of time, awesome. If you want to do something live and play it live, awesome. Like all the being able to do the show is actually one of the most important steps in the whole process, because doing a show really helps you to push yourself to make it to a level that is like you giving your best. So both options are perfect. Yeah, that's what I would say. Both options are perfect.
I'm just wondering what people do when they just play a premix and like it's already all done, so they just like stand there.
Yeah, they just, you know, they've just spent maybe hours and hours or years or maybe even just like one day making the thing, and they just stand there and they just like that's what they do, you know. Yeah, everyone's process is different.
I know this is kind of cheating, but do you think there's a question that we should be asking?
Good question. So actually my topic of conversation today, my discourse is going to be about setting goals, actually. and just kind of like starting to learn what's your sound. Should you be asking questions? If you have any questions about the discourse before I give the discourse, it would be probably around these two topics. So if you have any questions about setting goals and identifying sounds, yeah, that's where I would suggest your questions be. But if not, no. Oh, you know what? How about we share a little bit about our respective journeys, um, and yeah, what kind of? Let's see if any questions come out of that. So maybe I'll ask you guys a question. How is your current musical journey been inspired? How have you decided I want to get into learning to make some music or making music?
For me, I guess most of my life is fairly technical, and I feel like I would like a creative outlet, and I suspect that music could be pretty good. There's a particular type of sound that I really like. I want to learn how to do that, and then I want to see how it evolves. It seems like it's also something that would kind of help with meditation in a strange way, because I think that the way that I normally think in my, I guess you could call it a day job, would be quite different from the kind of frame of mind of kind of finding the right flow and tuning to that vibe. So I want to get better at that kind of stuff. So this sounds like it'd be pretty synergistic.
Nice. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I guess for me, like I've yeah, I've always like had music as a creative outlet. Whether like back when I was younger, I used to play in like bands, but that kind of dropped off. Back then it was more about like that spontaneous feeling of jamming and all that kind of stuff. But I think as I grew older, it's um I got in a lot more into that, for lack of a better phrase, like curating experiences, and like I guess my intention is to kind of want to bring people on a journey of sorts. And so sorry if I'm like rambling a bit, but like
Don't
this
be sorry. Just
yeah,
just say it as you
there's this
as you sound it out.
there's this writer called Alan Moore. So he says like like artists are like modern day, the closest thing to modern day shamans or magicians. So it's kind of like, I guess the intention is to like kind of guide someone's consciousness a certain way, and have them give them a perspective that they normally wouldn't have in their normal waking life. So yeah, I guess yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, for me, I started with psytrance. I know you know Bren, right? I was with Bren, did some DJ and everything, but I realized that I need to make some new music instead of playing someone else's music. And definitely, artists like you inspired a lot. Like looking at you doing the things spontaneously, I think my journey would be to do something like that in future. Yeah,
Do you DJ?
yeah, I did it. Yeah. I'm with Bren for Free Earth.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's really good to understand that kind of like that dream point for yourself. And actually, if there are no more questions, I might as well move into discourse. What do you guys think? Yeah? Okay. So let's move into discourse. And before we begin discourse, actually, I'm just going to ask you all to let's get off the screen for a second and let's just close our eyes for a second. So we're actually, I don't know, is there a way I can stop everyone's screen from showing up? Anyway, you can just, yeah, just dim your screen out, and I want you to just close your eyes for a second, and just breathe slowly with me. We're going to set some. I just want you to just feel your breath for a second, okay? So just breathe with me slowly. We're gonna inhale together. And exhale. And as you're doing this breathing, I want you to clear your mind of any thoughts of the day and just focus on your inhale and your exhale. Now, this is one of the most powerful temples of them all. Just being with yourself and being able to have a clear vision of what you want to achieve. And it starts very simply with just breathing and having a vision. And what I want you to kind of envision moving forward is I want you to think of a dream, like your highest dream of what you want. It could be just your highest dream could be as simple as I want to make a psytrance song. Or your highest dream could be I want to play at a music festival in Sweden, for example. And just have that one singular clear dream, clear ambition that you want to achieve. And that being something musically related with your musical life. So once you have that dream down, if you have another dream that's coming in the way, no problem. If you have multiple dreams, try to keep it just for now to 3. 3 big dreams, ambitions, like milestone things that you want to achieve in your life that are musically related. And it can be simple, it can be complicated, everything is perfect. Okay, wonderful. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back here. And I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to give you guys a document. After the end of the session, I'll give you this thing. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just gonna focus on these 2 things for today. There's like this whole map of music production that I've kind of crafted over here, and I'm gonna go through all this stuff during the masterclass. I'm not gonna do mastering. It's the one topic I'm not gonna cover, but I'm gonna tell you how you can prepare for mastering, where you can go to get your music mastered. But let's start just here at this very simple level here, which is goals, time, and my sound. And so I'm going to give you this document so you'll have access to it. And let's talk about goals for a second. Now, if you don't have a specific goal in mind about what you want to achieve, there's kind of no direction, and you're kind of endlessly experimenting. And that is fine for a short time, but it can be a big waste of time if you are constantly just experimenting. And you know, basically, if you have a clear goal, you can be more focused in what it is you want to achieve, and that's what I want to kind of help you to kind of address before you come to the masterclass. You want to set some ambitions and visions So you're going to write down at least one musical ambition or vision here that you have for yourself. You can write as many as you want. And this can change over time, you know, like I want to play a show at Boom Festival. That's like a big dream for me, for example. And once you hit that dream, you delete it, and then you make your next dream come true. And I have generally found that writing down any kind of goal that I have in my life, just writing stuff down, looking at it, there's something very powerful in that. I find that a lot of goals that I set, after some time, I'll look at those goals and they've been achieved, and I'll just delete them and then start to put the next few goals in there. Now, all the people that you respect and admire in whatever craft it may be, not even necessarily music, they are amazing and extraordinary at what they do, not because it just came to them or they were naturally talented. You know, they spent so many hours becoming good at whatever they were good at doing. And so the easiest way to get better at music is just simply prioritizing spending time with it. That's one of the ways. And the other shortcut is actually finding a great teacher. If you find a great teacher, and I'm not saying I'm the greatest teacher or anything like that, but finding a teacher is actually one of the shortest ways to help you to basically get good at whatever you want to get good at. Just because a teacher is able to see all the flaws in things and just show you all the shortcuts to get to something faster. And then there's 3 types of time, basically. When we talk about music, there's 3 types of time. There's study time, where you actually go and learn something specific. There's jamming time, where you're just playing around and having fun. And then there's production time, where you're actually going to create something. Whether you're going to use it or not is a whole different thing. But these are the 3 different types of time. Now, once you set a dream or a vision, it's good to start setting weekly goals about what you want to do. Now, I started off doing things that were time-based, but I found it really hard to stick with time-based stuff. So I find it more easy now just to kind of put my goals down and then kind of just look at my goal sheet every day, and then I'll work. You know, some weeks I won't even get to my goals, but then the week later or the week after, I'll look at the goal sheet and I will have achieved some of the goals. So just simply writing down little tasks that you need to do every week will help you tremendously in achieving your master vision or master dream. Okay, so being able to, and when you don't know, like when you want to learn something specific, when you want to learn about something, try to have a plan about what you want to learn before you even start learning about it. So you say, I want to learn how to make a psychedelic bass sound, or I want to learn how to make a trap beat. You know, just having that singular goal about what you want to learn is really going to help you to make sure your study is efficient. And then when you jam, you know, what I think a problem a lot of people in general have is they spend too much time jamming, or they spend too much time studying, and they don't spend enough time producing. So what you kind of want to do is you want to notice what time is spent within these 3 quadrants, and then allocate time for it. When you allocate more time towards production, you start to actually just like you get really good at the craft of music production. So creating or recording something is basically what production is. And then resources. Sometimes, like today, for example, should I get a MIDI controller? Just being able to start to type it down. Okay, I want to get a push 2, or I want to get a Novation controller. Just writing down what the resource is. And some people have challenges with money. Like this kind of thing is really helpful for you if you're having challenges with money, to put that resource down, find out what the cost is, see where you can purchase it, and then make a plan on how you're going to acquire it. Are you going to borrow money from somebody? Are you going to work on a job specifically just to make the right amount of money to get it? Are you going to exchange energy with somebody to do them a service and in exchange help you to buy this thing? So resource acquisition is another thing that you can plan for if you want something specific. So having this fundamental layer of setting goals is a really good starting point to help you to kind of just prepare yourself before you come to the masterclass. And then another thing I highly recommend is actually figuring out what is your sound. So what is my sound is probably one of the hardest codes to crack. But I spent a year actually just kind of choosing my sounds. And because I spent so much time choosing my sounds, now when I think about sound, I kind of almost know where to find this sound. So being able to identify what is your sound or what sounds resonate with you is a real important skill. Okay, so I would encourage you, before you get to the masterclass, start listening to songs you love, write them down, and try to see if you can find a language or words to describe what sounds do you love in that song. Starting to be able to use your own language to describe sound is a huge part of the music production process. So being able to identify, I want a saw bass, I want a glitchy melody. Saying those particular language things really help you to fast track being able to map in your brain, I want to do this, and then you're able to do it basically. So start to listen to, and it's just a very simple idea. Look for 3 songs you love and start to write down what in those sounds do you like. Yeah, and it's taken me actually quite a long time to find my own sound, but now I think I've finally found like my own musical sound. And it takes a lot of experimenting before you find your sound. Some people just find one sound that works for them, and then they're just automatically connected, and they have a lot of success with it. So, yeah, this would be my homework for you to prepare for masterclass. Find some sounds you love, set some goals before you come to masterclass, and then when you come to masterclass, you're going to be so much more like ready to take that on and take advantage of that to the fullest. Concepts people don't talk about. I don't know why. You watch all the YouTube videos and stuff like that. People never talk about like defining a concept, setting some goals and things like that. But that preceding step, I feel, is the most effective and efficient one to take you forward. So that's my discourse. And any questions? I will send you these. I'll send you these frameworks for the goals and the My Sound. I'll drop that in. I've only got Asfak's email, so Yastin and Isaint, maybe you guys can just send me your emails, and I'll make sure I send that out to all 3 of you at the same time. Any last comments, questions before we take a break for today? Yeah.
How about so go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just about the sound. Like, I mean, like finding your sound. I guess it's important to like find your sound if you wanna, make it big as a artist. Like, people recognize you by your sound. But do you feel like sometimes creatively, like it can kind of feel kind of it boxes you in a bit, in a frustrating kind of way?
I personally, I don't feel that way for myself, but also I've covered like so many different types of music. It's just more about sound as a whole for me, and it's not so much about genre anymore. I do have my teacher was actually asking this question of he's been known to make like awesome dance floor bangers, and over time he's gone into getting into more like chill out music. So he was asking this question, should I make a whole new artist name for my down tempo chill out stuff so it doesn't confuse people from my banging music stuff, you know? And I saw he had a very good point, you know, because when people start to identify you for, oh, that's E Saint, you know, he plays like heavy metal music, you know, like, and then they come and then you decide I want to do a different show of like chill out music, you know, like it's completely not what they're expecting, and then it becomes like something confusing in the branding kind of a stuff. So I personally wouldn't say don't feel boxed or don't feel limited by having to stick to your sound, because the journey is infinite and it's endless and it's lots of fun. So why stick yourself to one specific thing if you're having fun in other things? I do definitely see the value in being focused in one place for sure. Like, I would not put myself down for pop music, for example. Like, I don't want to be known for that. Like, that's not where that's not the thing that excites me for my creative output or whatever. So definitely filtering out that which you are not is really important. And being focused in that which you are more of will take you, I think, deeper and further. So don't look at it as a boxing, but look of it more as like there's kind of like this infinite wealth of creativity and possibility that you can go and experiment into like the smallest things. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Yeah. How about the uh, course structure? I would say the schedules. If I miss any class, sometimes I travel as well. So how do I catch up that?
So, like this session, I'm going to record all the sessions. That's my
Hmm.
plan. Uh, you know, it's technology. Sometimes technology fails, and if for any reason a video doesn't come through, I'll re-record it and make sure that if you can't attend the class, the replay is going to be available, and then you can watch the replay and follow that again and still access the class. So that's my plan, to make it like hybrid. It's like online, it's going to get recorded. Um, if you can't make it, you can access it, but yeah, that's my answer to your thing.
So by watching the video, if I got some doubts or I want to interact with you, and how will I do that? Yeah.
So I think a very important part of what I want to be able to instill in this masterclass is a question and answer section, which I feel is like the hardest thing. So finding the exact answer to your question, your specific question at a specific time, is one of the hardest things, right? Like, sometimes you might have a question, you go on YouTube, you're lucky, you've got it, the answer's there. Or you find a forum and then somebody's got the answer there. But what I want to create in the masterclass community is like a place where people can just ask their questions whenever they want. And not only do I have to answer, but if somebody else has the answer, like, they can answer that question like for you immediately. I'm planning to have like a question and answer that's kind of divided into different categories. So if you have a question about bass, if you have a question about technical things, if you have a question about recording, your question goes into that specific category. And then, like, before we get to the next masterclass, all the questions should be answered as much as possible. If you ask something that nobody has an answer to, well, that remains an unsolved question that you'd have to find the answer to at some point. You know, like, if you ask me stuff about multi-band compressors, I'm not going to answer questions about it because I don't use multi-band compressors. I don't think I'm not able to use multi-band compressors. It's just like, I feel like there's already so much for me to learn within the simple idea of a compressor. I feel like until I've like fully mastered that stuff, I don't want to move on to stuff that I don't understand. So if I don't have answers to questions, I'm not going to beat around the bush and tell you I have answers to questions that I don't have. I might ask some of my friends if I have to. I have lots of genius producer friends. If I can't answer a question, I might just pass it on to people like my teacher or some of my friends who are really good producers. So yeah, I think an important part is being able to support your questions and being able to watch the replay. That's what I hope to achieve with the masterclass.
Okay, thank you.
Personally, my main thing is just that I want to bootstrap the initial process, man. Like, I feel like there's a bit of a hump here, and I would like to be guided over the hump. So I think this is pretty good for me. But I'm worried that, the number of classes isn't quite enough. Do you think that we can cover enough ground?
So I am planning to give you all homework and things to work on, and I anticipate that the material will take a month for each topic to get mastered. I could have done a weekly masterclass, and that I know wouldn't have been enough time, because what tends to happen is I did do weekly classes with people in the past, and I would find very often that people wouldn't have enough time to like go through all the material before they came to the next class. So I've intentionally created an ample amount of time, but I'm also going to create homework to make sure you start to like nail that material down. And even if you don't nail the material down, you'll kind of know already what to do next. It will like come naturally, like, oh, okay, I've completed this whole step, right? I've got to go into the next step. It will come like as a natural thought that you will automatically go into on your own. So yes, I do feel like it's enough time for the masterclass, but nothing. We'll find out if it's really enough time, and I'm there to support outside the masterclass as well. So
Sure, sounds good.
any last questions, thoughts? Awesome. Thank you so much for coming in today, guys. Hope this was any thoughts? Was this helpful?
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
definitely as well.
Yeah.
For me, it got really helpful when you started talking about the frameworks and stuff you use to get over those things and optimize your learning. I think for me personally, that'll probably be maybe the most valuable part.
Yeah, I agree, because I think one problem is like I do something and I don't like it, but I don't know how to move forward with it. I just end up not revisiting it. So that was really like helpful as well. Yeah.
I'll help you fix all those things.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. So come for the next next Q&A if you're free. I would recommend just marking that down in your calendar. Today's session is recorded. It can be I will put that up. That will be available for consumption later if you need to consume that, or even if you want to share it with anyone. If you know anyone who you think might be interested in this, please help me share the Q&A video with them. And yeah, hopefully see you guys 8th of August or 15th of August when we start the first masterclass.
Thank you. Yep. Sure.
Have a great evening, guys. Ciao for
Thank
now.
you. Yeah. Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.